Holy smokers, folks, this ain't no dang jokus. I was just laying in bed about to start preparing my video for the main channel today. Got a lot of things to talk about, and then this news broke here. This is massive, and I got to react to this real quick here and tell you why this is so massive for Tesla specifically, okay? So, by the way, I appreciate y'all joining me. I hope you appreciate this little quick video I wasn't planning on doing. Smash a like. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, okay? Apple reportedly cancels plans to build an electric car. Apple will wind down its team working on electric cars, according to Bloomberg. The news signals Apple will cease its secretive effort to build a car to rival Tesla. Reports about Apple's ambition started many years ago, pretty much about a decade ago. Apple will wind down its team working on electric cars called Special Projects Group, according to Bloomberg. The news signals that Apple will cease its secretive effort to build a car to rival Tesla. The program employed thousands of employees, but never fit with Apple's core business of electronics and online services, and it raised questions about what companies Apple would tap to manufacture a car. Because supposedly, Apple was going to be the tech behind these cars, and then they were going to partner with a manufacturer to actually build the car. So it wasn't like a Tesla situation where Tesla creates a technology and builds the cars as well. Reports of Apple's ambition to build a car first surfaced in 2014 after the company recruited automotive engineers and other talent from car companies. There were few public indications of the company's plans, but Apple operated a program where autonomous Apple-owned cars equipped with sensors and piloted by safety drivers drove around the San Francisco Bay Area. The department had several reorganizations over the years, including layoffs in 2019, when employees were moved to different parts of the company. Some Apple employees in the company's car division may move to generative artificial intelligence, things like that. The company has obviously their project out there called CarPlay, right? That's a software that's in a lot of cars out there right now, right? This is something that obviously cost cutting for Apple. Some people might look at this as a positive for Apple specific. Now, I think this is really good news for Tesla. And let me explain why. As a Tesla shareholder, I was never that scared of Apple potentially competing with Tesla. But the reason I think this is so massive, folks, is this shows that Apple couldn't do it. Some people are reading this as, the EV market is too hard. Well, or Apple doesn't want to compete in a low margin, tough business. Guess what? Apple competes in almost all their businesses are low margin, very competitive businesses, except for Apple, right? The cell phone industry is cutthroat. It's extremely low margin, but not for Apple. They're able to make big margins, right? If you look at every competitor they compete with, the tablet business for Apple is very high margin. Ask their competitors if it's a high margin business. No, it's brutally competitive. The laptop business, very profitable for Apple, but ask their competitors if it's profitable for them. So what I believe happened here is Apple looked at this and they said, we're not going to be able to be high margin here. Doesn't matter what we do. Our tech is not going to be advanced enough to keep up with a company like Tesla and their engineers. And on top of that, we're not going to be able to make the money we think we can make in this industry, right? And so Tim Cook looks at this and he says, we can't do it. And this is despite them spending who knows how much, maybe ungodly amounts of money on this over the last, you can call it roughly decade, right? This, in my opinion, is also a huge failure of Tim Cook not to be able to be a success here, right? We know if there's one big knock against Tim Cook, it's the fact that he's running off the fumes of Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive. The whole company that's built today, and the whole reason this company's a success is because of Johnny Ive and Steve Jobs, those two gentlemen. And this is another example of a Tim Cook failed project. Now, if they fail in VR and AR with that Apple Vision Pro, then it's just, that's going to be very detrimental to Apple stock long term, right? Because right now, they still, as long as they can sell, tons of these, which is just, basically what Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive put together, just a little better chips each year, a little better cameras, which is all, by the way, a lot of the technology is produced by other companies, not by Apple. As long as they can do that, they're set here in the short term meaning the next several years. But for the long term, it's another blow to them. And it once again shows that you cannot compete with Tesla on the tech side. Company after company after company are realizing you can't keep up with Tesla. You can't do it. Rivian is realizing it. Lucid has realized it, right? NIO's realized it. Apple's now realizing it. And there's a lot of other companies that wanted to compete with Tesla, and they realized they just don't have the teams. One of the things I said that's always a huge competitive advantage for Tesla is they got the best engineers. I've known a lot of these folks over the years because of my Tesla coverage of the stock going back. I've covered the stock for 5-6 years. I've gotten to know some of them inside my private stock group, have conversations with these folks, and man, they are so freaking like, the highest tier. And you can't compete with these guys. And so even Apple's now realizing that. And, so another huge win now takes one less potential competitive threat right out of the market. And maybe, just maybe, here's a little conspiracy theory. Maybe Elon Musk, maybe he knew Apple had these ambitions, right? Elon Musk knows everything that's going on inside all these tech companies, right? He's connected with everybody that's everybody. Maybe him lowering the price over the past 18 months, maybe that was also a ploy to basically say, Apple, you're not going to stand a chance here. Maybe that was bigger. A lot of people think like, oh, he was just cutting price. He's just been cutting price to move volume. Well, if you look at the math around it, it hasn't really helped nearly as much move volume. It just hasn't. Maybe a little bit here and there, but it hasn't really added up. So maybe his price cuts here, maybe this was to basically eliminate Apple and say, you want to come into this market, you better be ready to just have, insanely low margins because you're not going to produce better margins than us. And you're going to have to be in just a very tough place in terms of your margins for years. So maybe this was, maybe that's a little conspiracy theory out there that this last 18 months of lowering price, Apple said, we can't freaking do this. China's ridiculously competitive. The United States market, no one wants an EV unless it's a Tesla, right? People want a Tesla. They don't want an EV. If they want an EV, you would see all these other auto manufacturers putting up phenomenal numbers, right? And look at everybody else that produces EVs. Their numbers are horrible. Rivian's guidance was pathetic. Lucid's guidance beyond pathetic. 9,000 units? For all of 2024, Tesla produces they'll probably produce about 6,000 units a day. And Lucid's talking about 9,000 total. And then you look at what Ford's done and how much they've had to cut price. You look at what GM's at. It's clear you can't compete with Tesla. And I think even Apple and Tim Cook realize you can't compete with these guys. And so me as a Tesla shareholder, I'm nothing but pleased by this news overall. Apple's always good from a marketing front. They bring a lot of awareness to a category. But at the end of the day, I like it when a big dog like Apple throws in the cards and says, we got to fold our hand. We can't do this. We can't do this. I just, in my opinion, puts Tesla even on another level here, folks, okay? And if people weren't believers of Tesla's team here and what they got going on the tech side, I think this is more proof in the pudding. And I think it's also evidence that Apple says we cannot solve self-driving vehicles. We can't do it. Think about that for a moment. All right, guys, appreciate you joining me and much love. I'm going to get to work on that main channel video. See you over there later tonight. Peace.